social commerce is here to stay. I'll never forget when people told me Facebook was a fad many moons ago in agency life. And I was like, this is not a fad. This is here to stay. People are in general are social creatures. We want to be able to trust our family, our friends, people that we look up to in the community for referrals on products. So, if you are not utilizing user generated content, if you're not working with, a social format to be able to create dialogue around your product, you're behind the gate. So make sure you're not behind that 8 ball anymore and you're really getting into it, embracing it. And again, just test it, try it. You're not going to necessarily hit a ballpark the first time, but don't be scared to try something new.
This is Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition, your go-to guide to solving your biggest retail social media marketing challenges authentically. I'm your host, Mike Allton, and each episode is an honest and frank look at what marketers go through, from awful algorithms to terrific trends and ideas that you can apply to your own business. And now, the rest of today's episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our chat with Jenna Galardi from Feedonomics. We're going to be digging deeply into social commerce, selling where your audience is. Jenna, it's great to have you here. Please introduce yourself. And for those who aren't familiar, please tell us a little bit more about what Feedonomics is and what it does and how product feed management relates to social media for retailers.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. My name is Jenna Galardi. I'm the director of Omnichannel growth here at Feedonomics. So I come from 13 years agency side, where I help some of the largest brands like Chanel to digitally native brands like The Fearless really start to grow their online presence, both from an ads and marketplace perspective. At Feedonomics, I run our consultative practice as well as our Omni Certified Tech Agency program. So making sure that merchants understand if they are at industry averages, how they're performing on these channels, making sure they're squeezing the most out of them, but then also looking to the future to see what are the next best channels. A lot of times we get unpublished information from channels, understanding what are the best ad formats, tips and tricks, also some different subsidies and rebates and ad credits to be able to make it easier for merchants to adopt net new channels. And with Feedonomics, it's all about product feed optimization. So when you are a brand and you want your product to show up everywhere, right? Whether someone's searching on Google and they're clicking that ad and coming back to your e-commerce site to check out, or if that transaction's happening on a third party, like an Amazon, a TikTok shop, Instagram checkout, Walmart, Macy's, etc. It's about making sure that that product information is optimized for that channel. So if you're sending the same blanket product information to every channel, you are not optimized for success. And I guarantee you could be performing better. So it's really about making sure from the right media, right? You need a white background on Google Shopping, but you might want a lifestyle image on TikTok. So making sure that you have the right imagery, the right media, the right character length. Sometimes where I see the biggest room for improvement, especially those first 30 days on Feedonomics, is their products are in the wrong category. We had a really great example in Google Shopping recently where a merchant, their hero product was a short sleeve t-shirt, and they were just sending their information before they came to Feedo straight to Google. Google's AI was the one categorizing them, and they put them in the shorts pants category because it had the word short in the title and short in the description, and they weren't drilling down to the right category taxonomy. So there's a lot of little things like that happen within product feeds, and typically either agencies or internal brands units typically send about 20 to 50 hours per month optimizing these feeds, dealing with errors and issues. So it's great to be able to have something like Feedonomics that can be fully managed, white glove service that takes on all of that feed management, so you guys can spend time doing what you do best and running your business.
Okay, wow. So 30 seconds in, I've already learned something new. I didn't realize that each platform is displaying those products differently and you have to adjust them accordingly. Obviously, as a consumer, I wouldn't have noticed that. I did want to call out that Feedonomics supports Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and Snapchat. So to make sure I'm understanding and communicating correctly, we would use Feedonomics to make sure that we're pushing products and making them available to purchase through those platforms and syncing all that data back and forth. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have two main products. One's advertising. So that's optimizing for something like a Google Shopping or even on Instagram, right? But maybe not Instagram checkout, right? You're just advertising the products, the end user comes back to your site. Now, there's a lot of changes that are happening. For example, Instagram is now saying April 24th, they're shutting that down. You need to be able to have checkout within app. So now it's a matter of moving to a marketplace, which is our second offering, ensuring that you're not just optimizing for the product to be sent there, but you're also pulling that order back in to fulfill, whether that's to your e-com store, your ERP, your OMS, however you guys fulfill those orders, and then pushing that tracking information back out. So those are the two main setups. For social, it could be used for either, whether it's advertising or marketplace.
Cool. So that leads me to my next question, because obviously, if you're using the product to sync the advertising on Instagram and they're killing that off, well, then you're going to need to make sure that you're syncing your products and your shopping. But what about else? Everyone else? When does a retail brand need product feed management? And what are some of the other benefits that maybe we haven't touched on yet?
Yeah, so typically when we're looking at brands, it kind of depends where they are in their, in their growth stages when they're right fit for Feedonomics. Typically, if they're doing 3 million or more online, they're an ideal fit. You're going to see that lift within 90 days. It's going to pay for itself. Some smaller brands, it might not financially make sense yet. Now they might be doing that offline or through resellers, maybe just not online, and then it could make sense. But typically, for that white glove service that Feedonomics offers, the floor is typically around 3 million online. And it's really anybody who's selling anywhere, right? If they're not finding you, they're finding your competition. So it's about, that omni-channel strategy, making sure that, it's not an option anymore. It's an imperative. Everyone needs to be listed on all different channels, because if they're not finding you, they're going to find someone else. And it's a matter of kind of being that front of mind on all those different channels.
That need to be omni-channel, that need to make sure that our products and our brands are represented everywhere. We've had that approach for many years when it comes to social media. We've simply said, look, you don't necessarily need to be active on every social channel, but you need to at least be present, have a channel. And I love that with your tool, it automates a lot of that presence. So I'm not trying to create products and catalogs on every single channel individually. What are
And
some of the
manage that in
challenges?
silos. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, I've been there. I used to do that, and that's a nightmare. But what are
Okay.
some other challenges that you're seeing in the social commerce space?
Social, there's quite a few. So I think the biggest one is just how ever changing it is and how evergreen it is, right? They're making consistent changes at a rapid speed. So someone's running their business, developing the best products that they can. It's hard to understand how many different changes are happening to those platforms. And that's why it's great to be able to lean on an amazing agency. Why it's great to be able to have someone that's always going to be managing your feeds and your orders and syncing that, so you don't have to focus on what's coming, what's changing. One of the things I love about Feedonomics is we're always included in all of the alphas, the betas, whether it was TikTok Shop before it went live in the UK, before it went live in the US. We're in all these alpha beta programs, so we can kind of see where it's going to evolve, where it's going to adapt. Even changes like when it was on Google and they said, hey, gender is now required for apparel and footwear. We knew that ahead of time. So we were able to be proactive versus reactive. And that's a huge savings, because that happened during holiday season as an example. And, TikTok changed a lot of their ad formats and the way that they accept products during the whole TikTok Shop evolution and launch. And we were always ahead of that game. So our merchants never had a feed that was down, or, middle of holiday season, they can't sell their products. So I think that's a big thing, to ensure that you just have it up and running, right? You're not missing out on Black Friday, Cyber Monday because your feed got shut down because there was a change in the platform you didn't know about. So that's kind of one of the biggest kind of scary factors of ensuring that you have your product feed set up. But there's also a lot of changes. I mean, everyone's trying to really push for in-app checkout. Not only do we see huge lifts for merchants when they do that, but two, you're getting a lot of that data that you lost during that iOS update several years ago, when you would click off, with the app, and now you no longer know, does that lead to a conversion, or did they just go to my site? Now you're gaining a lot of that data back when you're actually within app. And it kind of depends on the platform, right? So Pinterest, it's more kind of find now, buy later. They're pinning it for a later time period, where TikTok, it's a lot of instantaneous. I know for me as a consumer, it was the first time I'd ever seen a net new brand, net new product, and I purchased it on the first view. Because instead of kind of this polished look you see a lot of times on Instagram, on TikTok, you're seeing the product in motion. Someone's explaining it. It's kind of that shoppertainment, as I call it, on TikTok. And that leads to a lot higher conversions, because it kind of answers all their questions right within that video.
Yeah, I've been writing about social media for over a decade, so I can personally attest to just how much things have changed. I've written about each time one of these platforms have added e-commerce capability, because they didn't start that way. So it's
Oh
all
no.
new. And to your point, folks in the retail industry and in every industry need to understand that it's an evolution, right? TikTok Shop is not very old in the grand scheme of things, and so it's continuously evolving. Same thing with Instagram and so on. So with Feedonomics, now we've got these great shopping experiences and presences on all these different channels all at the same time. How do you think that our social media activity on the part of brands can or should change now that we've got this capability of audiences to purchase directly from those individual platforms?
Great question. So it does change the nature of the content, right? So it's one, their algorithm is leaning more towards products versus just ads. So it's really great when you do have that capacity to shop. I think a lot of people and large brands that I speak to, it's like, oh, it's on the roadmap, it's coming. And it's like the beauty of TikTok is it doesn't need to be perfect, right? You can get it up running right now. Same thing with Instagram. If you get one feed up, it's relatively easy to get the next one. It's similar content. One of the things I love about TikTok Shop is you can actually tag in the video of someone watching it. So let's say you have a large influencer, or you just have, you're sending out to kind of like local micro influencers. They can talk about the product, they show the product in use. You can actually have the capacity to tag those videos to go right to the shop to check out. So I think that's a real game changer. Is now you're seeing the products, you can click it, you can check out, your information's loaded from your credit card, from your shipping information. I was recently on stage and was showing something about one of our merchants, and I almost bought a solo stove right there on stage because it's so easy to click and check out. So that's one of the beauties of it, is it's kind of that instantaneous checkout. Now that keep in mind too that every social channel isn't a great fit for every different target audience and for every different product. I mean, there's going to be totally different strategies for different types of products and who you're really trying to reach. But we've seen huge growth on social commerce lately, and it's starting to rival, some search engines and larger marketplaces that used to take a lion's share.
And I would imagine that working with influencers or customers with UGC would all be fairly organic at that point. If you've got your products pushing out to these shops, they'd be able to tag them as easily as the brands can, right? Okay.
Yeah, so you have a couple different options. You can open it for anyone to tag, which is what I would recommend, because then you can get, just a daily user generated content where they can tag it. Obviously, you want to monitor it, make sure no one's tagging something that isn't correct. Or you can toggle and just have the people that you give the ability to tag your product. So maybe only the influencers that you're working with. TikTok makes it really easy because they have a built-in program now to be able to work with influencers. There's also really great solutions like impact.com where you can search for different influencers. They can manage your contracts in there. You can approve the content right in there. You can plug into their analytics. So you're not relying on like screenshots. And, if they really got those analytics, is pulling in straight from the platform. They're not having to give you access, but they give the platform access and you get all that data. So you're able to really see, what kind of influencers are creating the best results for you, be able to give them rev share if that's something that you guys are interested in. So it's really kind of changing the game, because when you have someone else talking about you, right, it's always a little bit better than you talking about how great you are yourself. So the user generated content is changing the game. If you're a brand that's just starting to dabble and maybe you're not ready for some of those, large contracts with big influencers, you can go to a lot of sites and get for $100 user generated content. It's everyday people that you're sending, your products to. They can send user generated content that then you can post on your own channel and handle. So I think that's a really great way to kind of dip your toe in the water and get started.
Yeah, and to your point, that kind of amateurish style of video, homemade video content, it seems to perform the best. I saw a product video on TikTok recently that, at first as a consumer, I was super interested in this product. I don't remember exactly what it was at the time, but then it dawned on me that this guy was just showing it off in his garage. He's like next to his car, his garage door's closed. He's using the back of his inside garage door as the backdrop for the product. And then the marketer in me started wondering, wait, was this UGC, or did the brand just create or commission this kind of homemade-ish looking video? Because
Yeah.
it was on a brand channel. So in the end, it doesn't matter. What matters is it caught my attention as a consumer. I was ready to purchase, right?
Exactly. And that's the shoppertainment that TikTok really so much about is, you're including that shopping aspect, but it really is entertainment. You're seeing the product in motion and use. We kind of saw that transition on customers wanting more of that content and, brands responding with first starting out, like seeing like the full 360 of their products online and seeing different angles and product in use and white background. And now I think we've really come to the more human, evolved state where we can actually see somebody using it in motion. But yeah, to your point, I mean, I've been in this industry for longer than I care to mention. I created some of the first Facebook business pages ever back in the day. And I was recently at an event for one of our clients, and one of my friends who went that influencer route a million years ago and is now one of the largest ones in the world, she was talking about same thing. She created a video in her bathroom because she was thinking of a funny idea getting ready. It hit 5 million views before she even got to the event, versus the ones that she planned out, had a videographer. Sometimes it really is those ones that are more organic, great content, and just really resonate with people and kind of have that funny tongue in cheek are the ones that tend to perform the best.
My favorite comedian, Taylor Tomlinson, complains about that all the time. Her most polished clips are like, but then when she just, does something off the cuff behind the scenes, those are the ones that take off. So
I love
what are
her.
some
I
of the
saw her
differences? Oh, is she the
online during
best?
COVID, and then I saw her in person when we were going on a work trip, and we were all in stitches. She's one of the best. If you haven't, please
She's
go watch
awesome.
her.
Yep, absolutely. So what are some of the differences or best practices when it comes to these product listings? You mentioned that they're different on all the different channels, Pinterest versus TikTok and so on. What should we be aware of?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely different ad formats. There's different content that performs best. The biggest thing is look at your data, right? Like you can have different hypotheses. There's things that can work for other people that might not work for you. Try it all out. There's no reason not to, right? Social media, it isn't necessarily living forever. People are constantly scrolling. On Instagram, you might have more of that doom scroll, while someone's watching TV or doing something while they're viewing. Where TikTok, it really is audio first. So you want to make sure that you're utilizing the right, vertical versus horizontal. You're using audio in your video, and obviously make it easy for them to click out. Because if I'm think about it, watching a TikTok video and I'm with audio first, I don't want to then click out to a website where I don't have my information loaded. Bring it right into that experience. They can watch a video, click it, purchase, and they never even have to stop kind of that wormhole of information that they're going into with their current algorithm. So I think that's the biggest thing is really, looking out for the data. Don't be scared to try. Like there's nothing wrong with not hitting it out of the ballpark or not going viral straight out of the gate. I think that if you're not already on these platforms, you're definitely behind. And this is a prime time because a lot of the big brands that have huge ad budgets, it's like turning the Titanic. It's taking them longer just to adopt these net new channels. So if you get on now, you're going to get more bang for your buck than you will in the future. So the sooner, the better. Don't be scared and try.
Yeah, and I would add that we can test a lot of those ideas with just pure organic posts. Like one of the easy ones that has come up year after year is whether or not you should be showing people's faces in your images and your videos. On some platforms, it actually is better if you don't. And Pinterest was kind of notorious for that, not having the people's faces. It was just a detractant for whatever reason. Whereas other platforms, you kind of want that face, the tone, the expression to be able to know, like, and trust. You can test that in your organic posts before you go
For
through all the
sure.
trouble of creating the content for a product.
And when you're working with content creators, don't give them such tight restrictions, right? If there's certain products you want them to go after, give them the product and let them go. They know their audience better than anyone else. A lot of times people are like, I want them to say this term. I want it to be this length. I want it to be, in this capacity and in this geo. Let them have free reign, because when you try a bunch of different things, that's sometimes where you find the winners. So I think just being a little more lenient and, letting people have that creative freedom. Listen to the people on your team. If there's a funny trend that you can hop onto, or funny music that everyone's got in their feed right now, just test it out, try it. I think a lot of times people are too scared and too rigid to really get going, and that never leads to things that go viral.
Couldn't agree more. I've got just one more question for you, Jenna. Any suggestions on how brands can support product that is at mass retail, i.e. supporting sale of something we have at Target or Walmart?
So you're saying if your brand, it's in mass retail and you want to support like purchasing on mass retail, a lot of times like you can link out, you can have those products. Also, a lot of times people are finding products on social, right? Like TikTok made me buy it, right? That was like the most trending hashtag of the past couple of years. A lot of times they're finding it there, but then they're going to their go-to to check out, right? A lot of times they're researching on Google if they don't know who's the brand they want, but they know what kind of product they want, or they've never heard of it and they see it on TikTok for the first time. time, but then they're going to Amazon to check out because they know they're getting that 2-day shipping. They know their information's loaded. So it's really just a matter of awareness and kind of thinking about the full customer journey. But obviously, anytime you can kind of reduce that cost and not have to pay those marketplace fees is helpful. You're going to get a little more profit there, but that's also why social commerce doesn't have those same marketplace fees of the Amazons, Walmarts of the world that we're used to. So I would say, look at social commerce as the next marketplace because that's really where it's going to be.
It also sounds like if Target were to use a product like Feedonomics and they would be pushing all of their inventory to a platform like Instagram, then you'd be able to tag those products on those platforms and have the
So
purchase fulfilled online that way.
Target Plus is a invite-only marketplace. Feedonomics can nominate brands to be on Target Plus. We have a direct API connection to be able to upload your product feed. And again, make sure that your product assortment that gets approved actually has the right title, the right description, the right information on it. Because again, that's key to success anywhere, is making sure that it's set up for that platform instead of just blanket information, across the board. You're going to have different search queries on different platforms, different, text formats available, whether they want paragraphs, bullet points, the right media. So really making sure you're customizing for that specific channel is going to lead to much higher success.
Terrific. Jenna, how do you see social commerce evolving over the next 12 to 8 months? Bring out your crystal ball and tell us, where's all this heading? What do we need to know about?
I think it's getting bigger. Obviously, a lot of people are concerned about this potential ban and what's going to happen and where it's going to go. But whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram, whether it's a new platform we haven't heard of yet that's being built in the background right now, social commerce is here to stay. I'll never forget when people told me Facebook was a fad many moons ago in agency life. And I was like, this is not a fad. This is here to stay. People in general are social creatures. We want to be able to trust our family, our friends, people that we look up to in the community for referrals on products. So, if you are not utilizing user-generated content, if you're not working with, a social format to be able to create dialogue around your product, you're behind the gate. So make sure you're not behind that 8 ball anymore and you're really getting into it, embracing it. And again, just test it, try it. You're not going to necessarily hit out of the ballpark the first time, but don't be scared to try something new. And if you need help, we also offer complimentary consults. So I can drop a link in here too if anyone's interested. You can book 30 minutes on my calendar, and more than happy to kind of go through your individual products, how we can potentially help and, help you guys grow.
Fantastic. This has been so cool, Jenna. I really appreciate your time. For folks who want to know more about you and about Feedonomics, tell them where to go.
Yeah, but hit this link. You'll get a direct consult right with me on my calendar. I'm at a conference next week, but that following week, we already have slots open. So don't be shy. Would love to talk to you guys one-on-one and make it really custom for you, right? Every product's going to have slightly different suggestions that we would recommend. We've got a bunch of amazing tips and tricks from social platforms straight from the horse's mouth. So would love to share all those with you guys, and hopefully we'll get to meet some of you in person.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Social Pulse Podcast Retail Edition. Hosted by Mike Allton and powered by AgoraPulse, the #1 rated social media management solution, which you can learn more about at agorapulse.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast player and be sure to leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.